like to welcome back Gary Westbrook and the Vice President of the POSGCD GCD Board, Stephen Weiss, to give us that presentation. Let's welcome them.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. And we're going to hopefully just tag team this presentation and tackle it together. So I appreciate your patience as we go through this. But we're here today to talk about Post Oak Savannah's Groundwater Well Assistance Program. It's a program that is in development process right now. It's not an approved program yet, but it's in the 7th inning or 8th inning, and we're getting close to it. So we felt like it was important to share some of the progress that we've made in this process. So
we've talked several times today about our management zones, the shallow areas, and so forth. And if you remember that cross section a while ago, I told you that the bottom county was the shallow area. So this right there, of course, there's Milam County, but this is that Carrizo Wilcox, where that dark red ribbon went across the county. The outcrop area where the recharge takes place, that's where the shallowest areas are, and so that's what we're going to use as a slide today to talk about, the shallow areas for that. That's the Carrizo Wilcox. Now, the deep area of the Carrizo Wilcox goes down here, that hatched area you saw earlier. It's covered over with those minor aquifers, and so within that same land surface, at the surface, you have other formations, and so as we go through that thing, remembering that 400 feet in each one of those aquifers is what we're going to call shallow. So we'll address it that way. Here's a slide I asked Robert to put up a while ago. Again, when you look at the two counties, you've got Milam County up here. This is the Carrizo Wilcox formation. You got the Carrizo aquifer on top. The Calvert Bluff, the Simsboro, and the Hooper are part of the Wilcox group, or the Wilcox formations. We have the shallower wells up there. If you were going to look at this and assign that, you might call that the Rockdale area, just for lack of a better way to look at that. And so you get the Rockdale area with their wells in the 350, 400, 450 foot range. And we've got lots of folks with wells in that same situation. Down here, though, in the Burleson County area, you might have wells 2,500 feet or deeper. And so it's these areas up here that we're really concerned about taking care of looking at those water level changes and taking care of those wells.
And I think that's the focus of the well assistance program is, of course, in those shallow areas where you would see the most adverse effect on some wells.
And that's long term. Remember that the DFC is district wide, and that's what we're bound to manage to right now by law. The shallow areas, we're going to call those PDLs from this point forward. In our new management plan, we call them protective drawdown limits, and that's for those shallow zones. So that's an internal that we hope in the near future, our neighboring, as you heard us talk about our neighboring districts, pull alongside of us and look at those shallow zones together with us. So we were going to go into a history of this program. There we go.
I think in order to lay the foundation of how we got where we are today on the well assistance program is it helps to go through a little bit of the history. This isn't something that as you see, it has gained steam in the last couple of years, but it's been on the table for quite some time. In 2006, Post Oak's management plan had a section in regarding mitigation, and at this time, it was assessing the need for one. Is there a need for a mitigation plan? And you can see with the language there that we would evaluate every year if there was a need for it. So that's what the management plan addressed in 2006. If you look in 2012, again, our management plan addresses it again. It's a little more specific here. It went forward, I would say. It took some more proactive steps. It says within a year of adoption of the management plan, we will review mitigation plans prepared by other agencies. taking a look at seeing what else is out there, what has other people done. I think, Gary, you mentioned that Railroad Commission, Alcoa, Gonzales County, Underwater District, we looked at all those plans. So, and then after reviewing those, determine again, is it appropriate time to develop a plan ourselves? The board chose to not pursue that yet. We didn't see an immediate need for a mitigation plan, but we continue to develop, as you'll see here. In 2015 is really where, late 2015 is where we had a group at a board meeting come together with a prepared presentation, very well thought of, that they expressed their concerns about drawdown in our district, especially, well, the group that made the presentation is a shallow well owners. They were in the shallow portion. And so they expressed their discomfort or that we did not have anything in terms of a mitigation plan. And so that kind of really started the ball rolling forward, I guess you would say more so. Soon thereafter, in January, then President Osley, he asked, or commissioned, I guess you would say, the DFC committee to come up with some recommendations for that. So it was charged as a mission to the DFC committee. And we started to get to work on that. We did say that we thought it was important to relay to those in our district that although we are interested now about pursuing the alternatives offered by a mitigation plan, that's not a management strategy. And I don't think I'm speaking out of turn with any of the board members, but it's my opinion. It's not our management strategy. We haven't changed management strategies. We still manage the exact same way we always have, but this is an alternative substitute if we do have some adverse impacts. Okay, in March of 2016, so a few months later, the DFC committee did have a report. We sent back, and our hydrologist, Dr. Steve Young, he reported what our findings we've been talking about. And if you've ever gone to some of our DFC committee meetings, it's highly technical, it's a lot of information, but we began to go through this process of really reviewing it, how we would structure a mitigation plan, what it would look like, what the remedies would be, etc.
And by the way, these are excerpts out of our minutes that are on the website. That's why the language is there.
And in August 2016, we actually put it to paper. We gave it a name, we put it to paper, called it the Groundwater Well Assistance Program, or the GWAP, just for short. But that was an agenda item on our board meeting in 2016. Since then, we've had, well, maybe not since then, but in total, you can see that we've tried to be diligent about this process. We've had lots of conversation both at the committee level and at the board meeting level, which all of these committees and board meetings, of course, are public. We've had input from outside constituents in our district. They've come to the committee meetings, provided input, which has been valuable. So I haven't counted those up, but it's been 10 or 12 times that we've addressed this so far. And of course, it's an ongoing process. We're still addressing that. 15. And in our 2017 draft management plan, not final yet, but a draft, again, we addressed Groundwater Well Assistance Program. But you can see the difference in language here. It's not only a proactive, but it's a definitive statement. Beginning in 2018, we will maintain a Groundwater Well Assistance Program. And then without boring you on the details, we'll hit it later, but it just talks about the purpose and the benefits that we have from it. So that's what we're looking at on our management plan in 17, actually defining that we will have an assistance program.
And our management plan needs to be adopted by December, so we're in the process. It's at the Water Development Board right now for what they call pre-approval to make sure all the content is there. What we put in it as far as being specific on how we'll do things is up to us, but there's certain content that has to be included in the management plan for it to be complete. And once we get it back from them, well, then we'll go through the process of having hearings and adopt our management plan. And our management plan is what sets out what our goals are and what we're going to do. the rules work together with the management plan to show how we're going to accomplish or do certain things. And so this is now in the draft management plan. Hopefully it'll be finalized before the first of the year, and the GWAP is part of it.
Okay, why are we doing this? What are the purposes of the well assistance program? Well, we've identified 3 different purposes. First one is the obvious one: restore water supply to well owners in the district who own wells that have experienced significant adverse impacts from groundwater level declines caused by aquifer-wide pumping. So that's the meat of it, right? I mean, that's what we really want to know, is to restore water supply for those who have been negatively impacted by drawdowns, if that happens. The next benefit, which is something that's of great benefit to us as a district, but also to everyone out here who's in our district, is that through this program, part of the requirements, as we'll see, is it needs to be a well that's in our monitoring network. So we're going to be able to increase our monitoring network as a result of this program. Now what that means is we've got a lot more data, right? We can collect data from these wells. By collecting a lot more data, we have a lot more information about the aquifer. And so we can monitor levels, we can predict, we can have more science, better science available, improve models, etc. So if you'll flip over, that kind of parlays into the next purpose, which through an increase in data, increase in knowledge, better information, we feel like we'll be able to address well conditions to prevent impacts in the future. And that's part of what's defined in this well assistance program, is to try to identify wells that have a high propensity to experience adverse impacts in the future. Within 10 years, I think, is what we've kind of targeted. So with this additional information, we hope to be able to prevent even before it happens, not just when it happens, but before it happens.
I think this, I don't know if we did a good enough job, but Steve, when we were improving the model, and this is obviously part of this, is improving that model to get those better predicted. Steve had a part in bringing some of the funding to the table with that, and it didn't get brought up in the last panel, but our sister districts worked with us to put money into making that model better, and you went out and got some money to help make that groundwater surface water interaction part of that new model better. And so all of that's working together to give us better predictive tools to better manage. So I just wanted to put that plug in while we're here.
Well, one of the questions that is obvious, of course, how are we going to pay for it? That's been a question from the public. Our constituents have asked that question. We feel like we've addressed it. First, it's important to note that you may already know this and have heard it already, but our district, Post Oak, is a fee-based district. It's not a tax district, so it's a little different than maybe some that are tax-based, but our income is from fees. And so to very generally go through the process, we have a budget process each year that we probably will enter here pretty soon, I'm guessing. But we set a budget and then set our fees based on that budget. And so that gives us the opportunity to budget in the well assistance program portion of our budget. And then we'll collect that through our fees. And so that's how it will be funded, by fees collected by the district. Next funding is, in the program, we say, and it's important, we've said it before, but this is a shall as opposed to a may. The GWAP shall be included as a separate line item in the district budget, so it'll be identified each year in the budget. Any funds not used in one year remain encumbered for the next year, and that was important. I know it's important to everybody, but it was important to me too when we began this process, was that I hate to use a savings account as a term. It's not really a savings account, but as we budget money there, if it's not spent in that year, it's still there for next year. Plus, we intend, at least in the near future, to contribute more to that. But so we're hoping to build up a portion of funds there in order to use these in the future if needed. So it's kind of like a savings account, I guess you would say. We're not going, if the money's not spent, it doesn't just disappear into thin air. It will grow over time.
Is Robert May still here? Hey, at least it's not margarita money, right? Y'all remember that one famous money? Yeah, I know. I was like, really? You needed to be here for that one.
Yeah,
I think the bottom point's really important. This indicates the desire of the board. It shall be fully funded. Not maybe, not when it's convenient. It shall be fully funded to accomplish the purpose, which we covered earlier. It's a shall, it's a mandatory thing, so it's going to be there.
I guess it is important to say the program's not in place yet, there's no claims, so there's nothing to be funded yet, but we'll see later that we are already considering this in our planning process. Okay, keeping on funding, it's our intent of the district, and this is explained, well, this is actually probably verbatim from the program. The intent of the district to cover all costs associated with the program for qualifying wells. And there's an exception here that we won't go into the details, but generally speaking, we're talking about covering all costs with the program for qualifying wells. And then here's the budget items that I alluded to just a second ago. In 2017, obviously, we were talking about this during the budget process last year in 16, and so we knew that we wanted to allocate some funds to this program during 2017, which we did. We put $70,000 into the account for the GWAP. Not expecting any claims, obviously it's not even a program that's in place yet, but there were some development costs that we expected, and we wanted to get the balance growing. We wanted to show that commitment from our district to fund this program. So I don't have the numbers for you, but a significant portion of that will roll over into next year as an unencumbered balance. And then, of course, we intend to, can't say this definitively yet, we haven't done it, but we intend to, or I intend to propose that we fund some more into the budget for next year. What corrective actions do we anticipate that we might use? Well, the plan calls for affected well owners could entail lowering a pump in a well, modifying the construction of a well, drilling a new well, even providing connection to a local water supply, and in some cases you might say digging a stock pond. Now, that wouldn't be for home use, obviously, but you never know what the situation
Yeah, you may
could
have
be.
some folks that have a small, shallow well out there that's the only water source they have for livestock, and maybe it just makes more sense to dig a stock pond there. If that's what makes more sense, then that might be the way to go. And the slide prior to that, when we talked about the exception, if that was our remedy and the landowner said, well, yeah, but I want to spend another $20,000 with what you're going to spend to do something even different. Well, that'd be on them, but we're still participating. We're still doing what we intend to do to restore that water supply for the purpose, which in this case would be livestock. So I think that's an important. We got a lot of flexibility there that we can meet needs with, and so we listed those.
We're going to perform an analysis of each claim, I guess, and do a study on what's the best remedy and the most cost-effective way to do that. We've talked a lot about what qualifies in this program, and this is really getting into the weeds, and there's a lot of science you can throw into it, and we're really not prepared to identify everything, but the general qualifications of it will be, obviously it's got to be a well that's located in our district, Milam or Burleson County. It's got to be a functional and registered with the district. It must be part of the monitoring network, and again, we won't get into the details of that, but it's an easy process that's part of this, and we encourage people right now to get involved in the monitoring network, whether or not you're involved in this. They must be a low-capacity, non-exempt well at 50 gallons a minute or less, or an exempt well. So Gary and I talked about this yesterday. I asked the question, well, what is the 50 gallons a minute or less? Why do we throw that? Why not just exempt wells? And there are some cases, not just a handful, but there are some cases that are permanent wells, but it's still for residential use.
Still domestic.
It's domestic. And so we just wanted to encompass, expand the opportunities for involvement a little more than just saying exempt wells. And then lastly, only wells that are not already included in another separate mitigation plan. Our timeline, we've got goals on our board and our DFC committee. We've got goals dealing with this and others. Our goals, they're on the website. You can see that in what's called a dashboard. But we are in the process of getting documents prepared for this. We continue to meet. We're going to meet on September 5th, evidently, and a board meeting and a DFC committee meeting, I'm told. And so those are open. We welcome people to come to that to hear this discussion. We hope on October 3rd we will be able to post this for public comment, a 90-day period. And I'm not an expert on the legalities of it. I don't think we're required to necessarily.
No, it's just that when you're really trying to go the extra mile, you give extra time, and so probably there's no legal requirement on anything that we're doing here. It's our own program. It doesn't have to receive public comment, but we're trying to be as transparent as possible, trying to give everybody as many bites at the apple as we can. And so instead of putting it out for 30 days, we thought, let's put it out for 90 days and give everybody time to really evaluate it, look it over thoroughly. Maybe they've thought of some things we haven't thought of. Maybe they've seen something somewhere else that we haven't been able to unearth or dig up. And then they can come back and give it to us in the way of a formal comment.
And hopefully by January, after that 90-day period, we'll actually have something to possibly adopt at the board level. So that's the time frame, and I think I asked to put that last one in there. Ongoing evaluations to continue to improve the GWAP. And what the purpose of that statement is, my opinion is, I'm just speaking on my opinion, but Gary used the term plowing new ground. This is brand new to us. We're starting from scratch almost. We've tried to plagiarize a few others, but we're starting. Each district is different, each aquifer is different, and we're trying to tailor this plan for our needs here in our district. And so I continue to think that we can't be, the board or the committee can't fathom all of the possible things that would affect this GWAP. And so I think that it's fair to say that we need to get something in place, and it'll be a good program, but I expect to refine this over time. I think that it's only prudent that we look at it on a continuing basis. And you mentioned 90 days so people can look. Those are the type of things that, and even in practice, once it gets into practice, you can probably imagine situations will come forward and we'll think, well, gosh, never thought about that. Didn't really consider that part. And so we're going to try to address those, but I'd ask for patience on everyone's part because we probably will have to fine tune it over time. That's my guess. Just to summarize and wrap up, we're probably doing well on time, I think. But our district and the board of directors, we're committed to protect the well owners, especially in the parts of the aquifer that are shallow and most potentially adversely affected. We're committed to that. We're also committed to an improvement of our monitoring network, which this program does get us there. And as you can see, we've committed to implement this GWAP and continue to evolve the program over time. So I'm happy to say this. We're excited about it. Our whole board is behind it, and you're going to see it roll out next year, hopefully. And we just open it up to any questions. I think we haven't been kicked off the list yet. Mr. Russell.
In November 2015, there was a call for a mitigation program through the Mr. Ridge project. Gary called me middle of January, said we would have a mitigation program by the end of the year. Mitigation and assistance is entirely different things. Mitigation, you come in, you're hook you up to city water. Assistance, the landowner is responsible for his well, and you give the landowner some money, anywhere from, and the sole arbiter of that is Gary Westbrook. There's no guidelines for that. And, is this mitigation assistance? What is it?
I don't know if everybody could hear that, but Mr. Russell was asking about the difference, or expressing his opinion on the difference between mitigation, which I believe is what he would like to see, and what we're calling this plan is a well assistance program. And he also questioned the timeline, where he believes Gary expected the program by, I guess, December of last year is what 2016, as I understand it. So I'll address a couple of those. First, hopefully it was clear to everyone that if we went back a few slides, that whatever we call it, mitigation, well assistance, frankly, I don't care. It's a more appropriate, what our board determined was it's a more appropriate name to call it well assistance, but who really cares? What we're going to do is, you saw that it said shall. It shall pay for all the costs to remedy the situation. We said we shall budget for it. We shall provide the funds for it. So, in my opinion, that's what we've addressed from that part. And as far as your comment about Gary, I think it's in his sole discretion, is what you had mentioned. That's not the way how we've written the program. First off, Bobby Bazan is the water quality specialist, I think, and he's actually administering the program. And so, but the way that the program is defined once we get it all finished up, it defines definitively how we address these things. If there is adverse impact, we come in, we determine the alternatives to resolve it. It's agreed with the homeowner or the owner of the well. It's acted, we pay for it, and it's resolved. It's really, Gary is involved in the administrative part of it, but the plan itself is what defines what we do. Gary, in essence, doesn't have a say about it. I mean, he's abiding, if he's doing his job, he's abiding by this plan. So it really comes back to the DFC committee or the board, and we're the ones who have, if it gets approved in January, we've approved it as that plan. And so we charge Gary with overseeing the plan, but he doesn't have discretion on it.
Steve, what I'm referring to is a few months ago we had a meeting. Bobby was there, Gary was there, and I was there. And what Gary told me was, Fred, this is not a mitigation program, this is an assistance program.
That's correct. And the reason, if I might, the difference between mitigation and assistance for us, as we've defined it over the last year or so, mitigation generally assigns the blame to one particular cause. In other words, in the case of Gonzales, Gonzales knows that they've got 3 exporters in that area, and so they set up mitigation based on the impacts of those 3 producers, because those 3 producers are going to cause all the problems in their district. So that's a mitigation, kind of like what the Railroad Commission did to Alcoa. For us, though, we see more impacts right now along the Brazos River from what's going on outside of our district. Well, we don't have any regulatory opportunities, much less authority over what goes on in Robertson and Brazos County. So for us, if we're going to have a mitigation, it's kind of hard. You can't assign that blame and do anything about it. So we've decided to approach it a little differently. We can assess and collect fees from our water users to meet the needs of folks that those users may not be affected. And that's why we call it assistance instead of mitigation. It's still going to accomplish what you've outlined that you'd like to see. 1, make people whole. Restore their water supply, whatever that takes. Drop the well, build a new one, all of that.
Make people whole.
Sir?
You're going to make people whole.
Yes, sir, absolutely. That's absolutely what we intend to do, make people whole. I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Did you hear it?
She said the witness.
Oh, sure, it's in print, it's been in print for months, it's, yeah.
Does anybody else? Fred, do you have any?
When are we going to see the funding strategy for this? This funding is huge. We're not talking about $70,000. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars, and I see no funding strategy.
Let me.
We've got Gonzales County, which is this side of San Antonio. They had their worst year financially was 2012, the second year of their mitigation. They spent over $250,000 on mitigation. The pumping production out of that area was 10,471 acre-feet, a fraction of what Mr. Ridge is going to do. Mr. Ridge is going to pump 3 times that much as soon as they get their pipeline completed. I want to see some sort of a funding policy.
I think what might be helpful, I've been thinking about this since our conversation this morning. One of the things we did a couple of years ago, and I haven't bounced this off any board members, so they're all liable to go, oh, what? But we identified about 4 or 5 years ago in our board policies what our goal for reserves would be in case we had legal battles in the future. So we set those policies, and now we know what that is. It might be appropriate, and I think that'll be one of the discussions we have over the next couple of months in the DSC committee, to actually set what that goal is going to be. Maybe by the end of 2018, we want $110,000 in there, and maybe by 2019, we want $200,000 in there. And in other words, we'll have a goal at some point in the future identified so that we'll know how we're going to get there. That might be one way to address, I think, your concern.
We absolutely need something like that. We need to know how it's
Right.
going to be in there, how much it's going to be, and how it's going to be adjusted in the future.
Right.
Gary, may I ask a question?
Sure.
So earlier, so my question, just in terms of the funding strategy, and I'm outside of here, I'm curious about this. Are most of your large permit holders going to be people who are involved in the Vista Ridge project? No, not most of them. But the production fees would be from those permit holders, correct? From the permit holders. Okay, that was.
Any other questions real quick? You probably don't have much time.
Yeah, you are running out. All right, let's thank our